Hey, hi, welcome back. Glad you made it. This is what I would consider the lightning round of the build. This, you see, is how we're going to keep this at 2 episodes only, because it's 2020 something and instant gratification is the name of the game. Please have a seat and enjoy these nuts.
Got him!
Yeah, I don't know. I think those are the swing-on pivot nuts. I mean, I took a video of them sitting there, but not of me actually installing a new one for some reason. Yeah, I don't know. Right, let's build. So here's the original front end. I had plans to go fenderless, but since the fender acts as a fork brace, you gotta put something in there to keep the front end from being all goofy. This fender itself actually mounts to this rusty, jacked up piece of shit, so this is what I have to do. I touched it up on a wire wheel and threw some black paint on it, and it still didn't look that good, so I added the most perfect sticker from my collection. It just about clears the new wider front wheel. Like, seriously, just. So Treeland carries this thing called the Palmer Kit CDI box. Apparently it has a better ignition advance / retard setup for a high RPM. You know, I had my eye on it the entire time, like even before I started really taking the bike apart, until it was time to buy it, and I did my final round of research. Looks like it isn't compatible with the type of CDI that my bike came with, which is the ignition setup that includes an external Hall effect sensor. Having opened the engine up, I know that mine has one, also known as a trigger. It's the source of the black and white wires that come from the engine. From what I understand, it's generally on bikes made from 2003 and on. Basically, this setup already has a pretty optimal ignition timing setup with a 10,500 RPM spark cut. Point is, this will be more than fine, and the Palmer Kit seems to be for getting other bikes on par with this. I replaced that center stand spring and touched up the bracket as I promised. The original spark plug wire is boring and faded, so I replaced it with a non-resistor wire that was covered in yellow and red cloth for some extra pizzazz. It's the type you screw onto the prong inside of the CDI box, so you cut it to length and then you rotate it like a bolt until the CDI box bites the core of the wire. Since it's a non-resistor wire, I'm running a short thread BR8HS, which is a resistor plug, and it's within the recommended range for a setup this high. Okay, so here's something fun. Whack! That was the mount for the original gas tank. See, if you recall, I mentioned that my model is a, quote, top tank. What that means is that it's styled to look more like a traditional motorcycle rather than what they would call a step-through, which is the classic moped shape featuring a frame-integrated gas tank of about a gallon. I believe the external top tank holds about 1.5 gallons. I bought it because I was more into that look than the thick bicycle look, but two things steered me away from the original top tank. One, I had plans to run a cross brace, for the frame to stiffen it up, and the top tank can't be run with one of those. And two, I mean, dude, you saw the bike last episode without the tank, and give me more of that. Now I know that the top tank models do still technically come with the frame hollowed out where the tank should be, and that the factory just simply skips cutting it open to add the cap and the spout, and technically you could add those things, with some cutting and welding. But I had a sort of middle solution, seeing, if it was possible to run the cross brace and mount a smaller tank to that. So I tried it out. I'm running a Motion Left Moped's crossbar for Tomos bikes. It's a bolt-on solution for chassis rigidity, which will go well with, as I said, all the strength mods that I've done to the bike already. You use the first nut to extend the threaded rod against the steering tube, and then you use the second nut to lock it down. The funny thing is that I pretty much cut that tank mount so perfectly that the flat part of the brace sits neatly onto it and makes some pressure onto it as well. So for example, I was able to lift the bike up by the bar without that rear bolt being in, essentially giving me 3 points of load-bearing contact. Or something. For the gas tank, I didn't want to spend too much because remember, this was just an idea so far. I ordered one of those cheap gallon gas tanks that you would mount on like top tube of a bicycle that you attach one of those little frame mounted gas conversion engines to. The great thing is that I realized that the MLM crossbar is about the same size as a typical bicycle top tube, so it mounted perfectly. Look at it. It looks like a little peanut tank chopper. Looks way better than a stock tank in my opinion. Oh, and you can see what I was talking about with the back bolt of the brace. It's literally hanging out and the brace and tank are still in place. I decided to run an LED taillight from Amazon, and that's doable, yeah, but since these things idle at less than 10 volts and use, like alternating current, I believe, yeah, you gotta be prepared for LEDs to kind of pulse at idle rather than just be dim like a bulb would. In fact, I'll show you exactly what I mean. So these don't run on batteries, they just use the power generated by the engine itself, like a generator. So I pulled the spark plug so compression wouldn't fight me, and I spun the engine over by hand. Now my camera was a little bit out of focus here, but you could kind of see the pulsation of the light, as opposed to the halogen bulb headlight, which just kind of runs dim instead of pulsing on and off. I mean, whatever, right? Motorcycle riders will pay extra for a feature like this, so whatever. I mean, it's not a bug, it's a feature. Hey, might as well check for spark while the plug's out and the light's off, right? Yeah, we're pretty good on spark. For intake, I'm running a MLM intake. Oh, dude, God bless MLM. But yeah, the MLM runner into a Mikuni VM18 carburetor, because I'm a vintage JDM motorcycle guy, and that's the type of shit that I know and trust. Kane and Mikuni, that's the go-to stuff right there. In fact, it seems to be understood that Mikunis are well beyond the quality and realm of the usual moped, the Lotto carbs, and whatever else. We'll talk jets later, because I'm looking at the footage and I can't read the jets on the footage, and I forgot what I'm running, so whatever. I'll come back to that, don't worry. So I mounted the new shortened throttle cable in such a way that it followed the frame very closely, and then it loops back, towards the carb, and it works flawlessly. Oh man, this carb right here is gonna eat. All right, here's the filter that it came with, and I put it on here, but ultimately I ended up not using it in the end. The bike was extremely close to being startable, but it still needed some ATF. On the side, I also had some new shorty cranks, because I realized that with the Mikuni with a filter on, the stock length cranks would hit it. I also got a bar and mirror setup. This Motorex Dexron ATF is recommended for high performance, high stall setups, so that's what I'm running. This stuff is kind of funny because it's actually orange, it's not red, and it's very runny. At first I was a bit skeptical, but this is kind of some of the best stuff you could run, so I just filled the transmission with it, installed the mirror, and I tried to install the pedal arms, but I didn't have the right cotter pin, the right hardware, so I just installed one of the old arms that the bike came with, so I could crank the engine over. First start. I just walked the bike to the basement entrance, which is down some stairs, so obviously that's why that wall is behind me, and I proceeded to try to first start this new setup. And here is what happened. And yeah, it fired right up. I shut it down because as an anxious bastard, I had to then take a second and think if there was anything that I forgot before really letting the bike run too long and then blowing it up or something. Luckily, there was not, so I continued to run it again here before moving it to the backyard to avoid the toxic fumes that weren't really dissipating. Now there was a slight rattle, from the engine, not from the pipe, that I was concerned with. So I consulted my moped expert friend, and he assured me that it's just the typical ring chatter that you get from these 70cc kits. So that was good to hear. And, to also quell my concerns, I also watched other videos of Tomos bikes running, and I heard the same chatter. I put the chain on. I filled the fork legs with the proper amount of oil. I ended up switching the top tank style flip-up seat for a rigidly mounted one that you would see on a step-through. I replaced the rear wheel with a banana style one to support my weight better and also to match the front wheel. I bought some 40-to-1 premix on Amazon Prime, just to get me started with a baseline that included the perfect mixture of fuel and oil. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen. if you can't already tell, this bike is a lot of fun. This wasn't the first ride that I ever did, but it was the first one that I filmed via helmet GoPro. I did upload a YouTube short of some POV, but that was just via cell phone in my hand. I'll upload some ride footage, and I actually filmed a live walk around and review, like commentary of the bike, but I'm gonna upload all of that separately. So, let me know what you think of the bike, and what you think of a more short form build series like this, you know what I mean? Something kind of new. Leave a comment, leave a like if you liked, and I'll see you on the next one. Illustrator out.